Good afternoon, everyone. Today it's my great pleasure to interview one German friend, Andrej. He's a special guest of mine. I know him a long time ago, and he's a very special person in my perspective. He's one PhD in physics, and he's also an artist and a marketing manager for one multinational company. So he is an interesting person, and he is a speaker of 6 different languages, including German, English, French, Spanish, Russian, as well as Chinese. He is also a Chinese speaker. So for me, Andrej is a really interesting person today. It's my great pleasure to interview Andrej, my German friend.
Hello,
Andrej.
I'm happy to be here to speak with you. Maybe first I would just say you explained that I do different things, but the reality is that it concerns my biography. It is one after the other. So first I had a PhD, then I worked for the industry, and then later I'm an artist. So it's different phases of my life which succeeded one after the other. So now I'm not doing any more physics since so many years, and I'm not working in the company, but I'm really an artist since 20 years. But looking to my last life, there was different episodes.
Yeah, really interesting. I think you have a very interesting life. You have experienced different parts of human lives. But first of all, I'm really interested in your interest in languages. You are the speaker of 6 different languages. I have mentioned the German, English, Russian, French, Spanish, and Chinese. So as one Chinese, I'm really interested in why you learn Chinese, because you are one PhD in physics, you are an artist. It seems to me that your life has nothing to do with Chinese. Why did you learn Chinese?
I think there's not a real very good reason, but it started not in the PhD phase and not in my artist phase, but when I worked in the American company. It was a big company named Eaton, and I worked there 10 years in the management. And this company is acting worldwide, and they proposed a Chinese basic course for the managers. And I participated. I didn't work for China at that time. I was responsible for Eastern European market. But I decided to participate because I knew some other languages, and I said, why not Chinese? But I didn't expect such complicated language, really so different language from our languages here in Europe. And of course, all the people who participated in this course, they abandoned very fast. So I was the only person continuing until today. So I think that is a secret. So there's not really, maybe at that time, I was a little bit curious about the communist system of China, how it is, because in Europe there was not any more communist system, and in Russia it was also fallen down after the problems of the economic problems. So the Soviet Union, that didn't exist anymore, and was really not any more communism. And I expected maybe to find something in China. Maybe this was my first cultural impulse.
Okay, I understand. Because you grew up in former Democratic Republic of Germany, which was a communist country. That's why you have interest in China. Yeah, we have imported communism from Germany, not directly through Soviet Union, but the origin of the communism, Marxism is here. So I fully understand. So since you speak Chinese quite well and you read Chinese literature, so my question is that, do different languages change the way you think or see the world as an artist, especially after you learned Chinese?
Yeah, I think every language, for me, the language is not learning vocabulary and grammar. That is also part of, so a little bit. But I think I'm even not so gifted. I have not so strong memory like other people's. But what I do have is I continue for a long time. And I'm also very, how to say, I take the emotional side of the culture of the place. So if I speak a language, it brings you to another phase of yourself. If you speak a different language and you do it in the right way, you are like a different person. You have a different culture in yourself. And I think if you speak several languages at that level, that you really know how people think, that if you speak another language, it's not only other vocabulary, but you say other things and you think other subjects. And I think, of course, for any personality, it brings you far. So you are more open to different ideas, and it might influence to my artistic view, but I cannot really say. I don't know. I mean, maybe the other people have to judge about that.
Yeah, so I'm very impressed. I think you are really generous of language. You speak 6 different languages. Yeah, for Western languages, maybe it's quite similar, but you speak Chinese, which is completely different Western languages. So that's why I'm really impressed. So my next question is about your early life, because you grew up in an industrial area in East Germany, the former Democratic Republic of Germany. So how did that environment influence your artistic vision? Because right now you are a full-time artist.
I think if you make it true, that's my definition, if you make a true artistic artwork, you have to tell something from yourself about yourself. I mean, your personality has to be included in all this work. That is not all. It's not all the time like that, because the artists, they need to sell something, so they produce something to make money, to survive. That is normal, but it's not really, for me, it's not really artistic work. Artistic work is really if your soul is inside. So I guess all these composites, they are really going into artistic work. So what was the question actually?
Actually, the environment of East Germany, because you grew up in Germany. I think you graduated from university in 1992. But that time, Germany was united. But you grew up in East Germany, I think. Does it have any impact on your
very much.
Artistic vision?
I think very much, because my artwork is like I started to tell, it's like emotional work about your life, and I think this period, not as much maybe my school period in East Germany and when I was a child, but more even the studies which I did in Odessa and in Ukraine, which was at that time Soviet Union, communist Soviet Union, and I think it's very deep in myself, and my artwork is kind of melancholic, thinking about all this time mixed with something of today. So the influence of this time is very strong, and I would clearly, I can imagine that anyone could, when he looks my artwork, he could pick out that I'm from East. I think you can see it in my artwork.
Yeah, Andrej, I think I'm really impressed by your wonderful life experience. You are an artist, but you are also a PhD in physics, so you have a scientific background. And my question is, how does your scientific background shape your career as an artist? For example, you are a photography. So I'm really interested in your life because you are different from other artists. You have scientific background, very strong scientific background, PhD in physics. That's difficult. For me, it's really difficult.
Yeah, let's say the PhD of physics is kind of following my passion for mathematics, which I had when I was in the school, and I was taking part Olympics, mathematics Olympiad, and had good results. And then I wanted to study mathematics, but they proposed me physics, so I studied physics. I think the scientific background is not really going directly into the artwork. And maybe I have not so deep scientific background as well. I studied the physics, and then the PhD, generally speaking, you continue the thing which you are doing on the end of your studies during 3 years, and if you do a good job, you get the PhD. But I see people who really know all the physics. Who are very perfect everywhere. I don't belong to these guys, but I had anyway a deep impression of the aesthetics of the mathematics and physics. And of course it helps me technically for photography. I never had to learn technically anything about photography because it's just easy for a physicist to think with light and the time and exposure and the lens. It was interesting that I come back to another point that you ask how it influenced my career of the artist. And the thing is that in the career of an artist, you have the two sides. You have the artistic work, which you have to develop, which is the most important, but you have also to organize your career around. It's not coming by themselves. It's fairly not enough to be at home and make a good artwork. You need to communicate, you need a strategy, you need to know whom to address and with which words, and so on and so on. And I think to have a high school study, maybe not necessary artist, is not so bad. It's easier for you to speak with all these guys from the museums and and so on and so on. You are not just the artist of them. They don't know about it, but you know how to handle and how to organize such things, and also your life and your career. I think, and on this part, it helps very much. Also, my business experience, which I have in the industry. Yeah. I worked 10 years like manager, and now when I speak with a gallerist, it's not so easy because I have to ask him something. So I beg him to work with me, and he looks to me like I'm an artist. So I need to know how to do that. And if you work 10 years in the management, you have some experience of this communication. Mm-hmm. And this is very important also for an artist today. And the artists who have a good worldwide success, they do have fantastic skills, all of that. I don't speak so much about that, but it's obviously.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you have a PhD title in physics, but physics is not your interest. Maybe you are more interested in art. That's why you have changed your career. But sorry, I think your first job after your PhD study is marketing manager.
Yes, I worked. I quitted the physics. It's not because I didn't like the physics, but I didn't see really a very, very interesting work for me. Because after the falling down of the wall, that was happening during my PhD. I was just sitting writing.
1989.
Yes.
Yeah, the fall of Berlin Wall. Yeah.
Yeah, with my boss, he wanted me to make a very big scientific work, doing a lot of years to help his project. And I say to him, no, I want to stop. I want to finish very fast. I want to have my PhD in 3 years. And I want to go to work in the system. I need a real job in a real capitalist system. I don't want to...
Excuse me, system? Which system? Capitalist system?
Yes,
You want to go to the heart of the capital system?
Exactly.
Okay.
that's a little bit my character. I really like to explore the things deep like they are. I don't really just be comfortable somewhere. And I didn't like the idea to stay in a university, which was not good place for me, because you have the professors, there are not many, and they have a lot very political work. They have to care about the money, about the students, and about some strategy. And then you have some postdocs, but the postdocs, they are limited for some years. It was not the same in East Germany. In East Germany, you have a lot of other people who are working for the university and research. They are not postdocs. They can work the whole life there. And when the wall was falling down, it was very clear that that does not anymore exist. So I have to have the short-time jobs, all this. So I didn't see a good future for me in this. It's not because of the physics, but in this organization of the universities. And so I really decided not to be comfortable and to make a postdoc and so on, but I decided just to go out to spring in the cold water and to do something completely different. And this was, I've been marketing manager for an American company, presenting this company in Eastern Europe, in Russia, Romania, and so on.
Yeah, I think your life experience is very inspiring for me, because I'm also writing my PhD dissertation, but I'm not interested in academic life at all. Same as you. I don't want to write a paper. I don't want to be one professor. I don't want to be one researcher either. So I'm more interested in communication with the public. I want to impact the society. So that's why I think your experience has inspired me. But I think the experience of being a PhD student is also useful, because I can learn a lot from this experience, like you have emphasized. So I think you are really a person with different skills and knowledges. So you have mentioned that after the PhD study, you have worked as one marketing manager. You have went to the USA. So my question is that your experience in the USA has probably impacted you. What is that impact from your perspective? You grew up in East Germany and you studied in Soviet Union in Ukraine. So both East Germany and the Soviet Union are the so-called socialist countries. But after the fall of Berlin Wall, you went to the USA. That's completely different, I think. So what are your feelings about the two different societies?
Yeah, actually, I worked for an American company, but I did not really live in USA. I just went sometimes there. I was in the headquarters in Europe, which was in Strasbourg in France. So I didn't live in the USA, but all my bosses and the business system was American. So I had we had a strong system to bring good results. And I mean, this is typical American. They didn't care so much about what we are doing. I worked in the sales, basically. So I made also management, subcontracting management to see the other partners and so on, which could be basically for the future. But on the base of that, I had to have the relations with our customers in Eastern Europe, in Russia, and so on and so on. And in American companies, these people are very appreciated. It's very important. They don't really care what exactly you are doing, but they ask you very strict results on the end of the month and for the future. So you need to show every month how many you will sell for the next years and so on. And for me, it was interesting. I mean, in Eastern Europe, you had people were also working seriously, dependent who and in which place. but you had, sometimes I'm thinking with nostalgia back to that, we had much more stability. You had your position, never ever something changed. And then if you did a good job, they were very happy, and you can continue like this, if there are no problems. In the capitalism, you have all time to struggle, to bring new successes, and then in a moment, if you are a certain age, they kick you out because they don't need you anymore. You are old, so it's much more competitive. And this is the basic thing which I learned. And of course, I had a lot of cultural enrichment because I came from East Germany, then I lived in France. I was every week going to our factories in Italy, America, and America not so often, but Italy and in Germany, in France, everywhere we had factories, and to the customer. So I had a lot of traveling all over Europe where I've never been before. And it brings me also the knowledge of language, of course, because I had to speak English, French, sometimes also translate. So it gave me a big impact of different culture.
Okay. So, you take care of the customers in Eastern Europe, but your boss is located in the United States. Maybe you have
Yes.
American boss, but you have Eastern European customers.
Yes.
You are the bridge between the Eastern European customers and the American boss.
Yeah, it's not so easy sometimes because
not easy. So
I had also French bosses, but they are strictly working for American. They are high managers, some French, some different countries. It's not important because the company is American. They don't care about your skin or about your where you come from. It's not important. You speak English, you make a good business job. That's it. They don't ask you that you are French, American. But the system was very American, and I had to report to them. It was very strict. Especially for the sales figures and for the results. But I learned sometimes they wanted to go with me to visit my customers. And it's not so easy because they didn't understand the culture of the East. I didn't say them, but I thought it's better I go alone to the customer. Because I speak a language, I know how to drink the vodka with the Russian customers. Okay. I know how to, it's not only that, it's not only about vodka, it's also about relations, how to communicate with people. Also in China, it's different than in France or in Europe. And I think this was my specialty. I was really able to do this job. And they were not. You cannot you're an American manager and then you come to some industrial city in Russia and you want to make business. Nobody, in that time, today, I don't know, but you need to understand these people and the directors of the big factories there and to come and a deep conversation with them.
Yeah, I think this is very international and cultural experience. I think you have gained intercultural experience from this job. Just now you have mentioned maybe your American boss don't understand the Eastern European culture. So from your perspective, what are the differences between Eastern European culture and American culture? Are Eastern European countries good at capitalist economy?
I think it's not only about capitalism, socialism. I think in the East, and now we can include China, there's a different psychology. It starts in Ukraine and Russia and so on. If you have a negotiation with someone, he's more seeing you like a person. He's more listening you without speaking. He can appreciate you. And it's not so verbal. You don't have to say all to explain, like especially German negotiation is very, you explain everything and a lot of times and I don't know, so you have to be very clear. And in Russia sometimes, or in China it was also the case. I have friends who are artists and they understand that I'm a good artist. They don't even have to look my artwork. They understand me. They look to me and then they understand me. And that is, I think, a big difference. And in France and Germany, you have to explain you have to make the right words in the right moment. And in these countries, you also have to understand the people and to listen them and to make your accepting yourself also. So I think that is not about capitalism and socialism, but about the different culture in the East.
Yeah, because you are from the former East Germany. I'm a Chinese, and you have lived in former Soviet Union, Ukraine. Actually, I think we shared some similar past because China is still a socialist country, and China was one part of the East Bloc. So I think East Europe, Russia and China shared some similarity, but now the three parts, the three entities have very different realities. The Eastern European countries are now one part of EU. I think they are quite good at capitalist economy. For example, Poland. Poland has made very huge achievements in economic development. Now Poland is a rich country. I think East European countries are generally good at capitalist economy. Chinese people are also good at capitalist economy. We are very flexible, but it seems that Russia is not good at market economy. You have experience with Russia because you have lived in Ukraine, which was one part of the former Soviet Union. I think, do you agree with my observation? I think Russians are not good at capitalist economy.
Yeah, I think that's right. I would agree.
Excuse me, even East Germans, they are still struggling with capitalist economy.
For the Russian, it's more clear because they, in the history, they never had capitalism. They had the revolution, or however you want to call it, in the 17, and then first in 1905, and they had the Tsar before, so that they had a real ownership of per person. How we call it, feudalismus.
Federalismus.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and then they bring it to some kind of socialismus. So they don't know this production for small companies, and this didn't really exist. So till today, the people are not very independent in this way. So of course, we have some intelligent people. They do something. They are creative, but the system is not made for this. So for me, it's quite clear that. And then of course they have after the splitting of the Soviet Union, they had a very corrupt system, which is till today in all these places, let's say not only in Russia and all the other places around also. And it's very difficult to change from this culture. But in Germany, it's very interesting. It's not clear why they struggle with the capitalism, why sometimes people, I don't know, why they even say it's not good to make business, something like this, It's hard to understand for me. Maybe German people, they have kind of cultural anti-Americanismus.
Okay.
And this is the basis for economic things, but also politics. They have a lot of German, especially of the intellectuals, a lot of German judgments are not really very realistic. They don't care so much about the situation. I can say, for example, Ukraine. I don't want to speak now so much about this war, but you have really a lot of people who don't care so much about the situation there, but they know that they don't like America for any reason. I don't know exactly why. And so from that logic, they make a lot of judgments which are more or less wrong in my view. Because it's not enough. It's not enough to say Americans are guilty, they did this, so if they did the war of Iraq, they did also the war. No. You have to analyze things, how they are so placed. And in Germany, a lot of people are influenced by such. But why is it? I don't know. I cannot understand really.
Yeah. Why did I ask you such question? I think you are a perfect person to answer this question about the transformation of the former socialist countries. Eastern Europe, including Eastern Germany, Soviet Union, Russia, and China. All of us shared the socialist past, but right now the reality is really different. I think China and Eastern European countries have integrated into the world economic system, world capitalist system, and they are good at market economy. But Russia is struggling with the market economy. I think Russia is a loser of the globalization, and China is China has benefited from globalization. Probably China is the biggest beneficiary of the globalization. This question is also related to Russia and Ukraine. Right now, I think the biggest problem, biggest challenge facing European countries is the Russia-Ukraine war. I have no knowledge about Ukraine, but you have lived in Ukraine for, I think, 7 years, something like that, in Odessa.
No, I lived there 5 years.
5 years. And you speak Russian or Ukraine?
Ukraine.
You speak Ukrainian language?
No, I speak Russian. I mean, in Ukraine, at that time, I think 60% speak Russian, and they speak only Russian. They don't speak Ukrainian. So it's like in Belgium. If you go to Belgium, to the French part and French-speaking part, they don't speak Flamand. And the Flamand people in Belgium, they don't speak French at all. So if they want to speak each other, they speak English maybe. And that was in Ukraine the case. So I mean, in Odessa, except in some villages, but in the city in Odessa, nobody speaks Ukrainian. So when the Ukrainian government say we have to change the language to Russian, to Ukrainian language, they were laughing because nobody knows this language.
Okay.
And that is the thing, because the other countries, all the countries did it. Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Jordan, everything did it. So in one day after their independence, they decided to introduce the local language like a must issue. So if you want to live in this country, you have to speak the local language. And in Kazakhstan, a lot of Russian people go out because the Kazakhstan language is kind of Turkish language, and it's quite difficult to learn for the Norman old Russian people to learn Kazakh. I mean, the old people, they can maybe stay, but if you want to live, to go to school. And so a lot of people went out. They go back to, not back, but they have never been in Russia, but they go to Russia because it's easier. They speak Russian and there's also business. But Ukraine never did that. They just in the years before the war in the Crimea, they started this process to say, okay, we need Ukrainian language. And there was a big, it was for, in Ukraine, it was for, in my view, it was not so big issue. But in the outside, the people say, oh, this is fascist, and they try to make cultural problems, create cultural problems for the Russian people there. And so I don't see it like that. I see only that they tried to introduce this Ukrainian language, also in these regions more. And of course, this is a problem for some people, but I think it was a normal process, and it's hard for me to understand how people can say, intellectual people say, oh yes, anyway, Ukraine are more fascist and I don't know, whatever. So I cannot follow that. I lived there, and I think, that is the Russian language is part and the Ukrainian language is part, and it's not really a big problem.
I have no experience with Ukraine and Russia. I just watch the TV, read the newspaper. I think the problem is deep for Russian leaders, for President Vladimir Putin. Maybe Ukraine is one part of the Russian world, culturally and spiritually. But now Ukraine wants to join the Western Bloc. May I say this word? This is a fundamental conflict between Ukraine and Russia. I think Russia believes Ukraine is one part of the Russian world, but the people in Ukraine want to join the West. Probably it's the source of the conflict, one part of the source.
Of course. I would say, I mean, they are different. There's the idea of the big Russia, but I think in that time when the war was starting, this idea was not so developed. personally, I believe that the very clear reason why, because it is interesting, why did he start this war? That is very completely crazy. Nobody believed that he will make a war. He started it. But actually, for me, the reason is quite clear. It's not because there's fascism in the Ukraine, and it's also not because of the Osterweiterung, how we call it, of the NATO. It's secondary. I think the main reason is that in Ukraine you had every year the elections, and they get 1 year, one time it's for Russia, it's like CDU, SPD, one against Russia, one is for Russia. So it was changing naturally because and then the generation starts to be younger. Of course, it changed a little bit. And the Krim, you have the problem with the Krim. So after Putin occupied the Krim, a lot of Ukrainian people didn't appreciate that and didn't anymore vote for the Russian party, the pro-Russian party. So the Ukrainian country, and the moment that Putin took the Krim, he was starting to be very Ukrainian. So I think it was a big mistake because he had a good neighbor, like half Russian and so on. And when he took the Krim, he had already a neighbor which was quite distant, didn't appreciate it. And then I think with the new generation in the West, the problem for Putin is a personal problem because the young people, they like the consummation, they like the liberty, they like the development of personal business to do some career in the international world. And for Putin, it's very dangerous that this thing will go over to Russia. Because this is normally happens. When Ukraine will be pro-European, they don't need to have a political connection with Europe. But the young people, they will choose more and more these possibilities, and they will not like the leaders of the old style. And if this makes, how an illness, if it goes over the border and the Russian young people also think the same thing, it is very dangerous for Putin. So he must, for his security, he must keep the old system. It's his only, that's where he can be. But he cannot be a new leader for a new system. And I think this is a real reason to stop that in Ukraine, because it's dangerous for him. They start in Ukraine to be like young people free and so on. And then the same thing will happen in Moscow and then in Petersburg, and then he is over. And I think this is when the moment to stop it and to establish the old leader system. It's not so politic and it's not so about really about military. It's basically, I think, it's this idea behind.
It's about this. It's about the survival of Putin's future, and his regime. Good. So maybe last question about Ukraine. So now it's in the 5th years of the war. The war broke out on February 24th, 2022. Now it's in the 5th year. So what will be the outcome of this war? Any estimation, expectation from your side?
No, I have not so many expectations, but we know that if there's a war between two parties, everyone is losing. It's like that, because on both sides a lot of things distracted, and I mean, especially in this situation here now, we can see that also Russia lost a lot, and anything they need is happened. Positive thing for them. They are not a very big important country now, not powerful. The border to the NATO is really very long, and now they have a neighbor which hates them and which is very, very well armed. I mean, they are a member of the NATO or not. They have developed in cooperation with, I don't know, with Denmark and England and so on. They developed very modern systems, and that is all what they don't need, Russia. So everything is bad happened. And then how the war will be end, I had my theories, but I think it's not interesting to discuss that. What I hope which will happen.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever happens, I think the war is quite bad for Russia. I think Russia has suffered a tremendous loss from this war, militarily, economically, and strategically.
And
It's a tragedy.
morally and culturally, everything.
Yeah. It's a tragedy, I think, for both Russia and Ukrainian people, definitely. And my next question is about your impression about China, because we know each other, because you learn Chinese, I learn German, that's why we know each other. You have visited China for several times. I think you have lived in China for some times.
Just some months.
What were your impressions about China, and any difference between the past and now?
Yeah, you see, the past, I had the first reason to come directly to visit China was in movie. I mean, in a very long documentary, 9 hours long, from an Shenyang, from a documentarist. His name is Wang Bing. He's a very good documentarist, one of the best I know ever in the world, and he's teaching on the KAFA in Beijing. And he made a film which name is more or less on the rails. I mean, about the railway. And he made just a film about Shenyang, about all this industrial complex. And I was very fascinated by this film. And I thought that I have absolutely to go there. I was already an artist, and I thought this is for me like what I need to see such big places and factories and also the old world of the working class of 50 years ago. And I organized, I was even paid by French government for artist project and so on to Shenyang. And the problem is the film was 15 years old, and in 15 years everything changed. I mean, you had in the city center of Shenyang, you had 120 factories, and they are left maybe 3 or 4 from the 120. All the others, they are outside. They are very modern factories on the border of Shenyang, whatever technology, car production, metal, aluminium, a lot of things. Very modern factory. You cannot visit them. They are quite closed, everything. And so I was not really disappointed, but it was not exactly what I expected. So I started to visit the art institute there, and I made my first. The people were interested in my artwork. I prepared an exhibition. I never did really very much photographic work in China. It's very difficult for me, for some reasons. So that started my experience, and then from then on, maybe every year I went at least 1 month to China, and I found it very interesting for me. It's like a very secret world, because from the outside they are like a communist country. From the inside, from the reality, it's like New York City. It's very capitalist. You need the money everywhere, and you need a lot of money and people. It's really like, especially Hong Kong, which was not China at that time, but it's extremely strong capitalism in the big cities in China. But it works together, and it works not bad. So I was quite wondering, even that how they make the money, the rich people. I mean, it's not so clear. Some people, they have a big car. It's very secret. So and they don't speak about that. I mean, I have friends, but they don't tell you so much about all this. It's not normal in China to speak about all the details and policy and so on. It's not normal. You just eat together, you have fun, and then. But I found it really curious. So I found really I have to go and to understand more of all this stuff. And of course, I was also hoping to see old structures, old factories, and so on. But it's very hard to find them. I went from Shenyang to Anshan, to some smaller industrial cities, but everything changed so fast. And you go to the small city. Last year I was in Neimongo. Everything is modern everywhere. And then you see, I read here in the internet about the ghost city in Neimongo.
Yes.
it's wrong. It's not anymore. I mean, it was Ghost City maybe 5 years ago, but things are changing. So all this, the flats they are sold, and all the article about the Ghost City was, let's say, more or less wrong. So that is the interesting thing. It changed so fast. But for me, it's also like I'm a little bit melancholic type. I like also the old things which I get relation to. I like them. Seeing once more or whatever, it's not possible. It's so changing so fast. So, I mean, that is basically a little bit my feeling about the...
Yeah. It seems that you have mainly visited northeastern China, which is very special in China. In northeastern China, there used to be very a good heavy industry. But now the economic development has slowed down, and the northeastern China has suffered a lot from the marketization, because in the past there were a lot of state-owned heavy industrial complex. They have problems in the capitalist economy. It in some sense it's a little bit similar to the Middle West of the United States. So from my point of view, I mean, the northeastern China has experienced some difficulties during the economic reform. It's very different from southern China. I'm not sure if you have visited southern China. In southern China, the situation is very different from northeastern China. Probably the people are better at capitalist economy than northeastern China.
Yeah, that is very possible. I was also in the south, but only in the big cities. I was in Shanghai, in Xianggang, Shenzhen, how's the island close to Taiwan?
Close to Taiwan.
On the other side of Taiwan.
On the side of Taiwan, Fujian.
Yeah, Fujian, the island there. And yeah, the big cities, you know, they're all a little bit like very big cities. You cannot really judge about the industry. But my feeling was that Shenyang, like the city and region, was quite rich. A lot of money, a lot of new houses, new, and so for me, maybe why I go to the north is also, yeah, one is that they speak Mandarin. I need that. In the south, they speak a little less Mandarin. They do speak, but not as not everywhere. And also, I think for me, the personality is easier in the north. They are more warmer. It's like the Russian a little bit, you know. They, if you know them, there's like in the south, especially in Hong Kong, it's very special for me. I don't like so much. And Shanghai is already between. It's not the same like in the north. Okay, Beijing is now a very big city, so you cannot say so much about the Beijing character because many people coming.
Yeah, very diverse.
But anyway, you have the northern character, which maybe fits more to what I'm looking. You know, these people who goes personally to you. You have like in Shenyang, the people invited me to the institute, and I have really good relations with them. So I think, of course, I would find also in South China, but for that period, I was more engaged in the north.
I think Shenyang and other northeastern cities are the right place for you to visit in China, because your artistic work, I mean, many of your photographs show industrial or abandoned space. Because in northeastern China, there are a lot of heavy industry factories which are probably abandoned. Have you observed such an abandoned factory in northeastern China?
It's very difficult to
Very difficult.
I mean, anywhere it's difficult to find abandoned factories, also in Russia, because or in Ukraine or wherever, because they don't produce anymore. But they belong to someone, and this ownership is very strange because it was state ownership. They don't produce anymore, so some private people took the hand of it, and they do some, not business, but they put some stock inside, and everything is protected. You have the the wall around, and you have the dogs inside, and the
dogs inside.
In Russia,
okay. It's abandoned.
In Ukraine, you have the.
But it's possible to visit such a place because it's not a military zone.
No, it's not possible, because nobody is interested to show me, and these are private places, and these guys they don't care about me. And maybe it's possible if you have a special government, someone helps you from the government, but I don't have such relations. But if you make an official ask, nobody will answer you, because these are capitalists. They don't know what does it mean artist. They are afraid of any visitor. Maybe a journalist, maybe writing something about property, state property. So never ever you get really in permission. And if it is very protected, actually I cannot walk. And in China, that is a matter of fact that all the places are very protected because they have a lot of people. And so really, I think there might exist abundant factories, but I think it's very difficult to find them. And then they change very fast. They do something else and construct some new quarters.
Yeah, as an artist, how do you think about the cultural life of Chinese people? At the beginning of our conversation, you have criticized that many Chinese people have no cultural life. So can you please explain to us furthermore?
No, I think I'm not about the people, because the people have not so many cultural life that is everywhere in the world, because people have to care about their income. And they need to feed the family, find a place to live and to pay for the rent and so on. So they have not really time to, not all people have time to look movies and so on. But then you have some people in the big cities which are interested in culture, who want special concerts and who like films which are different from the mainstreams. And I'm such a person, so I like that. I go to jazz concerts. If I go to the movie, it's a movie for, I don't know, for 20 person. No many people looking, but very interesting. And in China, it's almost no existing. I mean, the small, and for example, in Beijing, there's a cinema which shows documentary films. But it's so strange. They show some old Russian films, and I mean, there's really nothing contemporary interesting. Or if you speak about music, you have very good musicians, but they are basically working all over the world, but not in China, because there's no concert room. I mean, you have a concert hall in Shanghai, which makes quite few concerts if you compare with the quantity of people. And you have the concert hall in Harbin, which is fantastic architecture, but is, I don't know, 29 days, a month, there's not much happening. And so it's not very developed. But I think it's also in today China, I think you have a very high development of the food culture, which is really interesting, and it's for me, I appreciate that. And when I go to China, it's really also, in part of my research is really to eat things which I've never eaten and which Chinese people. So I think it's really interesting.
Okay. It seems that we Chinese are only interested in eating, nothing else.
But I think it is something very good also, you know, and it's also culture and it's very sophisticated. And you know, the concert, the music is a problem. I mean, it's very in Europe. Also, the museums, you know, in Europe they give a lot of money to this. This is basically rich countries, and in France, the money which they give to culture is tremendous. It's very enormous. And in Europe also, and imagine in Berlin, they have 3 opera houses, and they rebuild them, and they put $1 million. I don't know, the new opera, komische Oper, is a lot of money. And you have that you cannot have in all the countries of the world. It's not possible. And in America, it's not like that. In America, you have a lot of private person who give money to the. So the concert and all this is very expensive, and the normal people cannot go to the opera, and the opera is quite expensive. And in the smaller cities, you have in America, you have nothing. Also, there's no in Dallas. You have a Dallas Culture Center. It's a little bit like in China. There's not so much happening. And I think that is more the reason. You have an other economic system which is not really ready to spend a lot of money for the culture.
Yeah, I think it's a worldwide problem for cultural institutions. You have to make money, otherwise you cannot survive. In China, I think it's really difficult for cultural institutions to make money. Yeah, some of them are supported or funded by the government, so they have no problem of making money. But if it's a private cultural institution, it's really difficult to make profit. They have problem to survive. But this is true also for Western countries. You have mentioned America, but the difference is that the American have very strong tradition of donation.
Exactly.
Even it's very small cultural institution, but some people are interested in it. They are willing to donate money to support such a cultural institution. Maybe this is the difference between China and the Western countries.
Yes, I think in Germany it's not so much donation for the culture, but in America it's very important. I mean, there's a Protestant tradition, and the most cultural institute, if there are no donations, they can close. All the philharmonies and all the stuff, they really have a big part of donation. And in China, in the Chinese culture, this kind of donation is not very usual. People like to use the money to develop their own family, to bring, because they still have the idea that the life was not easy in the past time, and they have given a lot of education to the children, and they really strongly use the money to do that. And I think they have a very I don't know how to say, efficiency. So they put the money where it really makes better your family. So they buy the flat, they bring the children to some good university, but they don't really give a lot of money for some institute, except some rich people. They have some art collections, but it's not very. If you see the collectors in Beijing compared with New York or even in Switzerland, it's not so much.
Yeah, from my perspective, maybe China is more capitalist than Western countries. I think cultural institutions are one typical example. If you cannot make money in China, you will die. But in Western countries, if you cannot make money, you still can have some financial support from some private persons, or even from the state, or from the society. So in this sense, I believe China is more capitalist than Western countries. Maybe in other words, China is probably more materialistic. Chinese people are more interested in materialistic sense than spiritual sense. Do you have a similar feeling?
Yeah, I have a friend in Shanghai. She has quite the good money. She works like a manager, and she gets the same like a manager here. And I ask her, you want to buy an art? And she has in her family, she has rich people who are working like architects for big projects. And I tell her, you can bring some of your uncle to my exhibition. And she said to me, they are not interested in art. They like technology, architecture, and science. And art, not so much. So they will not come to your exhibition. So it's a matter of fact. And I think, and that's interesting. On the other side, China, like a government, he's investing a lot in science. Because science, you cannot also, it's not capitalist. The science, you have to invest for the future, and you don't know what is coming back. But they do invest a lot, really. But in the arts, but you do have good. That really, we must say, you have in my field, photography, painting, you have a very good art school in China, and you have very good artists and interesting exhibitions, but it's quite concentrated in some places, and it's quite exciting. So when I go to Beijing, anytime I will go to Tichoba and to look to some new art galleries. But for the galleries to sell artwork, I mean, they really need a very, very big collectors. There's not so many medium collectors like in Europe who buy just for the flat or so. That is.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think it's a big challenge facing China. Right now, China is trying very hard to expand its influence around the world. But from cultural perspective, the Chinese influence is very poor, maybe much less than France, than South Korea. China is now already the #1 manufacturing power of the world. The Chinese companies produce about 1/3 of the production worldwide. But in terms of cultural influence, I think China still has a long way to go. I think South Korea, the small country, much smaller country, they are more influential than China from my point of view.
But this can change because they developed it now in South Korea. I think it's like a fashion moment now. It can change, and in China there are also some things. For example, there's a writer which name is Liu Zixin. He made a book. I cannot read it in Chinese because it has 3,000 pages. So it takes me, and it's not easy because he's quite very technical. He's coming also from the physics, and his Chinese language is quite a lot of different, technologic descriptions. But I read some of his small novels in Chinese, and they are really excellent, really very, very interesting. I would like to, they are not translated because they are a little bit politically, it's not important, but so I think he didn't want to, but really good. And so, there are some guys who make also, and his big book, the Santi, the free body problem, which is an interesting problem in physics. If you have free bodies, you cannot, you can just approximate, you cannot calculate. There's no formula how they will move. Just you can move them step by step. And this book is very appreciated. I mean, Bill Gates and Obama and all these guys, they like very much this book. So he's quite popular in the world. And I think his writing work is really interesting. So you see, you have really some guys, but you have not a very big multitude, not very much different, which make very different how to say? Trial, yeah. Make very different trials because they must sell the thing on the end. But you do have some.
Yeah, of course. China is a big country. Of course, China has made some achievements. But I mean, China is already a manufacturing superpower, but China is still not a cultural superpower. I think China can learn a lot from other countries, even from Germany. Germany is not so big, but Germany is very influential in terms of culture, right? So any advice, any suggestion from your side if China wants to increase its cultural influence worldwide? Because for many Chinese people, I think we still focus on money. We want to make more money. We believe art is useless. Like for me, art is probably useless. So how can the people change their mindset about art? How can you increase the people's interest in art?
I think it will come automatically. You have the first people who are getting rich, they are just thinking about money and they have not so many culture, a lot of them. That is normal. And then you have more and more, and then you have the rich people between them. They want to show something interesting, so they have to do something interesting. And someone have to buy something better than the other. And it's not just technology and a new car, and that is happening. So they buy art and they are interested in the stuff. And I think if the welfare of the country is developing, the culture is also developing. But of course, it helps also if the government gives some fund for some independent art lines, maybe for the jazz music or for some, I don't know. So of course, this helps also.
Yeah, thank you, Arnold. So I still have two questions. So as an artist, you have visited China. You have the experience with China. So did your experience in China influence your perspective as an artist?
Yeah, maybe not so much. I think my art before and after being in China has been more or less in a direct line. But since I believe that the artist in his art, he's really bringing out his whole personality, and I have new experiences, there should be something. The view is wider, you do see more things, but I could not pick out directly influence in my artwork from the visits of China.
Okay. Yeah, for me, your life is so wonderful, international, complex, and diverse. PhD in physics, artist, and a marketing manager, and a speaker of six different languages. So looking back, what is a common thread that connects your life in East Germany, former Soviet Union, your career in the industry and experience with China? So anything is common between these different parts of your life?
I think there must be some, but one is very concrete, very visible. It's that in the spaces where I am, these industrial, this is following my whole life, because when I was young, I worked also sometimes in companies. I find this also very interesting, and I regret it doesn't exist anymore in the future. The collective work together, like in the factories, all this process, I find it a very nice process. And then in my company, when I worked, I was visiting all the old factories in Eastern Europe. And then later I did the photographies in them. So I'm continuing on this ambience. And then, I think when I do something, it's like in the science or like in the art, I try to find out the truth. That is not all the artists who do. Also the writer, sometimes they write something and when you read it, you see, oh, he do it just to play the others or something like this. I really try to give what I am. And so this I did in all these different situations. And I think it's necessary, but otherwise, of course, you need also to gain some money and to make your life. You need to organize this stuff on the side. But if you want to make the real art, you need to imply your personality, and that's what I did all my life. And I think also it's interesting to think over the future. The discussion is now very often if the computer manpower, if they can replace art. And the question is more or less, yes, of course, they can replace a lot of art. Except maybe some personal histories, because they can do the things beautiful. They are creative. They can really do a lot, but they cannot tell my life story, because this computer he doesn't have. He can make up a life story, but maybe there's a difference. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not so sure. But I try to be on that philosophy that art is connected with your person and with all the experiences which are in you.
I think you are the right person to answer the question about the challenge of technology. I mean the difference between technology and art, because you have experience of you have a scientific background. So last question, you will visit China in a few days and Japan as well. So I wish you will have a nice journey in China. Probably when you return from China, I can interview again about your experience in China. So thank you for talking to me, Andrej.
Okay, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you.